up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Place Where Streams Come True. And oh my God, like, I don't even know where to start with this episode. One, it feels like part one of an actual, like, Scarlet Witch film. Yep. And two, I called it, we are out of sitcom now. We are no more sitcoms. We are completely out of sitcom land. So, yeah, Helen, first of all, how are you?
Emotionally devastated.
We knew it was coming. We knew it was coming.
But I don't think I was fully expecting to like shed a tear over this one. So,
oh man, it just
it was a lot.
Poor so, what lady. Were kind of your first impressions and everything?
Just sheer delight. Every single sort of little sequence in this episode just had so much to give. We had some like guest, I'm not going to say guest stars, but we had some like guest actors who were just top tier, absolutely excellent performances. Like loads of little expanding on the universe. I think it was a really, really good episode, and exactly placed well in the series as well, I think.
I think so too. I also think it was a good place, kind of, where I love that we kind of also got some like meta responses, like that accent coming and going. Yeah. I mean, of course, this is something people have complained about, or not complained, but nitpicked at for ages. And it's just kind of funny that this basically the MCU is going, yeah, well, okay, we hear you, we get it, kind of thing. But yeah, but I see, you can tell. I don't. Oh my God, this episode. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was dense.
We'll kind of go, we'll just break it down. So we get our Marvel logo starting, and we get our previously on WandaVision, yes. Which is funny. Her voice is getting more and more annoyed. Yeah. Like, it's not even like previously, it's now previously on WandaVision, kind of like, like, I'm really getting, and I love that detail that you wouldn't pick that up unless you went back. You're kind of like, oh wait, the voice is just progressively getting more annoyed and things. But so that, and then, but the Marvel logo turns purple at the end, kind of thing. And we are in Salem, Massachusetts.
Indeed, 1693, the height of the Salem witch trials, which was immediately a fun, almost bait and switch, which I thought was really, really nice. Obviously, Agatha Harkness in the comics, she has been around since long before the Salem witch trials, but she is sort of known as like one of the survivors of the Salem witch trials, even though there are stories of her actually giving up some of the witches from her own coven to the Salem witch trials to like cull the weak. We don't know how, obviously, like we're getting a different Agatha here than we are in the comics, but just like, a fun aside that she's not always the best in the world, but yeah, like that bait and switch of we know she's a witch. We got that last week, and she's being led through the woods to what looks like a burning. And you're like, oh, they're going to be burning her because she's a witch. And you get up there, and it's like, oh no, being a witch is actually the good thing to be.
Yeah, because I knew, I was like you. I was like, okay, yep, here we go. But the minute like the magic kind of behind her arms, I was like, oh. And then the question, are you a witch? And again, there's that little pause, and then she's like, yes, I am. I also love she has an accent, because settlers back then, they would be British or other nationalities, but I love it wasn't like, it was subtle. It was like an old time accent kind of thing. And I don't know, I like that kind of attention to detail, because I mean, I guess the reason why I'm going on about that is we've had that attention to detail even when it came to the sitcoms, from the way the voice patterns are and the rhythms and things like that. And someone who came from kind of a theater background, you pick that stuff up. So I'm just like, well done. Yes. But and then it looks like basically she's dove into what like the darkest of magic, and she's being punished for it.
Yeah, so the accusation is that she stole knowledge above her age and station, and practices the darkest of magic. And I kind of got and her response being, I didn't break your rules, they bent to my power. I actually kind of got sort of Doctor Strange Caecilius vibes from this, and like the way that the Ancient One was in that movie, with sort of like, yeah, like you think it's dark magic, but actually I'm just better than you.
As
But
you
yeah,
are.
I did kind of get that vibe of like, okay, so this is like the forbidden power, like you're like, say, perhaps a book that had been locked away in one of the sanctorums, perhaps from Doctor Strange.
Maybe.
Maybe that's where you get it from. But yeah, it's a kind of a fun start to the episode, I think.
I was really surprised that we like, obviously they start kind of I can't even say the word right now, projectile like power to, I don't know if they're trying to like kill her, what, but then obviously we go get our purple magic and it's like sucking the life force out of them, which is very interesting because it was very similar to the purple Infinity Stone in Guardians of the Galaxy. Like if you kind of held it, like you kind of disintegrated. I don't know, maybe I'm making too many connections here, but it was just interesting. And I also was kind of like, oh, this is a bit scary. Like this would scare me as a kid seeing, I had a thing with skeletons as a kid. So I was just like, this would have scared me seeing, the bodies drop basically. Yeah. And then, she tried, sorry, go ahead.
No. I think, by getting to this point in the series, any viewers will have already seen like our Vision corpse jump scare and our Pietro corpse jump scare, and there's been quite a few little sort of horror elements here and there. So I like to hope that sort of by this point in the series, people kind of are expecting that sort of low key, this is going to be unsettling sort of impression, which we definitely get a little bit later on as well. But I also want to say about the magic and the sort of the colors. I think the issue we will have for a long time is that we've always had this kind of, these are the colors of the Infinity Stones.
Yes.
And because of that, they've already used up 6 colors. And it means that if you use them for anything else, people will go, oh, that's the Power Stone. Oh, that's the Space Stone. And I think we may have to sort of like mentally try and get away from that, especially if we're saying, no, these are colors of magic. Like we have, say in Doctor Strange, there's the orange of the sorcerers. That isn't necessarily a soul stone connection. It's also orange. And it might take people a little while. It's certainly for me, I was like, oh, Power Stone. And then I was like, no, wait, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I get the feeling that we're going to have a whole bunch of different colors of magic. And it's going to get a little bit sort of like turning off that immediate connection to the Infinity Stones will be rough.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't feel as bad. One of the things I also liked in terms of kind of a design point in this opening scene is she pauses for a moment. She doesn't want to basically kill her mom. At least that's the vibe I got. And the mom's like, no, sorry. Tries to shoot to the heart. But I love this kind of like crown that like went over her head, because I've seen that
like
depiction.
This blue crown.
Yeah, and I've seen that depiction in other kind of characters and other mediums and things. So it was just a really cool touch, because it was almost kind of like, maybe not quite so yoga, but you know what I mean? You're kind of channeling so that kind of power to do that. I don't know. Yeah. I just was like, that's a real, it's more than just a woo, wiggly woos out of my fingers, to quote Evan Peters.
What I'm really hoping is that is actually something that comes back, because things that happen sort of later in the episode, I think it would actually be nice to see sort of a return to that, like the cool crown of like blue. Perhaps we get it in a different color. So yeah, I think it would definitely be cool to see later on in the series, or later on in the MCU, in fact.
Yeah. So I just was, you know me, I'm a big FX nerd. So I was just kind of like, oh, I see you. And I like that. That was a really cool design choice. But then, of course, just with a heavy flap.
Yeah. But also interesting that Agatha says, I can be good. And she says, no, you cannot. And I just found that really interesting. Like, I want to know more about like how they've got to this point. And also, that was her mother. That's also like an interesting, like, I want to know everything about that family.
Yeah.
And
But then
I really,
kind
really
of
do get Agatha for the rest of the, like, she stays for a long time because she's been great so far.
oh my God, we said this before we went live that I really love her character. And I mean, and just even the little nuances, because like she's always had this kind of like sassy smirk in the sitcom stuff. And she even still had that little smirk in Salem where she said, well, you know, it bent to my will smirk. I was just like, I love this character like so much. I guess I probably feel the same about this character where a lot of people feel about Loki, whereas not so much for me. Please don't throw your tomatoes at me, but I get it, kind of. I get it, kind of thing. But yeah, I really liked where they were going with her character and everything.
Sure.
And yeah, so what happens next?
Yeah, so we return to the basement where Agatha is encountering Wanda. Wanda immediately tries to use her mind powers to sort of see what Agatha's thinking. And I think you were saying before about the accent, right?
Yes.
Sort of taking the mick out of her for her accent sort of coming and going.
Yeah.
But what we also see here is Wanda sort of, instinctively attempts to do something about this woman who is taunting her about not having her kids and all this.
Yeah.
And Agatha kind of goes from, ha ha ha, I've got you, to, what? Because Wanda doesn't know these apparently simple things. Like,
Yeah.
there are runes that only the witch who casts them can make spells here. Well, how do you not know that? This is like basic stuff. And Wanda's just like baffled by the entire concept because this is definitely not something she's ever encountered before,
Yeah.
which is fun.
No, I really love that. I love that, like, Ralph, it's interesting. Something must be in the rabbit, because it's interesting that she was holding Mr. Senior Scratchy and was like, "What? What's that?" Yeah, or something like that. Oh, of course.
You got to give
I'm
him
an
a love.
idiot. I'm all right.
He's
Of
a
course.
baby.
I should have paid more attention watching Sabrina. Right. Of course. It's a familial. I can't even say that word.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is like people always, so Agatha obviously in the comics always had a cat familiar, and I think maybe it's funny because people are describing the Agatha reveal as sort of the biggest twist that everyone saw coming. Anybody who's read the comics or has even like briefly looked into what might happen in WandaVision, immediately, oh, Agnes is probably Agatha Harkness, comes up in the first search result, and it has done for months. But I think that it was almost them trying to be like, look, it can't be Agatha. She's got a rabbit, not a cat. It must be completely different. But even like Senior Scratchy, Agatha Harkness has a son called Nicholas Scratch.
Correct.
So even that is just like, I promise it's a different character.
Yeah. But no, it's onto your point about the whole, like, see her turn into like a, wait, you don't understand this kind of thing. But I mean, I love though also like that power shift too, because she tries to do something and she like, and I mean, basically Wanda is like right there, and so kind of almost like holding her in place. But yeah, I love that you can just kind of see the motivations changing, where it's kind of like a, hang on, so you're telling me you don't understand the basics? Like, it's like basically like two martial arts fighting off, and they're like, wait, you don't even know like what martial art you're using, but you can do all this kind of stuff?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Hang on, kind of thing. But so maybe when we'll talk about this a bit more, but like I don't know if Agnes is trying to help her hurt. This whole episode I was like, what is she up to? Kind of thing.
I think there's a couple of lines from her that definitely kind of, they don't tell you exactly her motivations, but they tell you kind of a little bit about it. She as she's talking to Wanda, she demonstrates a couple of spells to her. The ability to sort of take control of another creature, and it's when she explains that she used crystalline possession, not necromancy, to bring this person to her as her brother. Fake Fietro, if you will. Wonderful. Can't believe nobody came up with that portmanteau before.
Oh my god, that had me and just my better half in stitches. That was like...
I shouted when I heard her say that. I was like, what? Why didn't I think of that? But she also shows her... So she makes this little fly that you have a big thing about. This fly sort of crawl all over her face. And then she shows like this transmutation, saying, this is a single spell that takes years of study, but you've managed to make a whole town transform, and you've managed to mind control a whole town. And she specifically says, I need you to tell me how you did this, which to me doesn't say you are a problem. To me, that tells me you are a solution to a problem I have, but I don't understand how. Which I think will probably link back into what she was sort of playing the pronoun game with in the intro, where she's just like, this power, unnamed power, unsourced power, just power. But yeah, it's just a really sort of interesting thing. And the other thing that I really enjoyed here is as she's talking to Wanda, she stands in this very particular way, where she's got her hands in front of her, and she's almost making like an upside down triangle with her fingers, like as she's just standing there. And I'm fairly certain, I may have just imagined this, but I think that's exactly what Doc Ock, as in Octavia from Into the Spider-Verse, did, who was also played by Catherine Hahn. And I was just sitting there going, did they mocap her, or did they just go, oh, that's a really cool, sinister pose?
I don't know, but actually,
really enjoyed that.
It's funny because I saw people making a comparison to the two, but I didn't really see the context because this week has been just absolutely crazy. But actually, that would be kind of funny, where you just feel like, yeah, or maybe it was one of those, like when they were doing the animation references for Into the Spider-Verse.
Maybe they were recording her.
Yeah, which, by the way, if you have not seen that, holy crap. Like, we talked about this on our other podcast, Pending Final, and I cannot wait for the next one. Like, Helen basically came to me and was like, you have to watch this. Like, it will blow your mind. And I'm like, yeah. Okay. And I literally was like, you were right. So, yeah, I'd forgotten that she was Doc Ock in that. So that's really cool. But yeah, I'm wondering if, like, that's kind of her. I thought you were going to say something about Doctor Strange, or the who's the woman in Doctor Strange, the
ancient one.
Thank you. I didn't know. I was ready for you to say it was like the ancient one or something like that. But no, that's really cool. So basically, we kind of start then, like, Agatha's like, let's dive into your life.
Yeah, like, Wanda. Specifically, Wanda kind of is very obviously does not know how this happened, which is, I think, kind of mixes up a couple of the different sort of theories that we had about, Wanda is controlling this, but maybe not completely, or Wanda is controlling this, but maybe somebody else is. But in fact, it's just Wanda is controlling this, but she blacked out how she got there. Which I'm sure one of the many theories that has been spread out across the internet was one of them. But yeah, so Agatha takes a hair from her head, as you are wont to do with any magical spell where you want to get any memories from someone or any information from someone. And we open a door, which I reckon was behind that murder tarp that we saw last episode. And Agatha manages to entice her through it by, reminding her that she has her children stashed away in her magical basement.
So it's kind of one of those, what's behind door number 1? And we see it is probably circa 1990s Sokovia-ish. Well, it must be, because we're talking about Malcolm in the Middle. Or maybe, no, that's shown later. Anyway, but we go through, and I was so gutted. I was waiting for those parents to be the people in the commercials, like you've been saying for weeks, and it was like, that's all right. I mean, it would have been cool, but then it was like, actually,
it wasn't the end of the world.
and the casting matched kind of the locale that they're supposed to be from and things like that. So I was like, okay, that makes sense, kind of thing. But yeah, we see it's kind of family night, and we see this box with, direct call outs to, yes, here is the sitcoms we have been referencing, which I didn't think they'd be able to do. But obviously,
I feel like they own everything now, so they probably could.
But it was very cool to. I know some of the people who do the Easter eggs things are probably literally like, I totally said this when I was talking about the Dick Van Dyke Show and showing the intro and all that kind of stuff. Where it was like, okay, they are not making any, like, hiding any of it. That is definitely referenced. But we learn. Go ahead.
That's what they're doing. Is they're specifically saying, this is a direct reference to this. Like later on, like by the end of this episode, you're saying, okay, so it wasn't just, oh, it's kind of in the style of, it is in the style of, and very specifically, and I'm so glad to have seen Malcolm in the Middle later in the episode. I was like, yes. But things like that where they aren't just kind of going, oh yeah, it's a callback to that sort of thing. Oh no, they are specifically saying, no, this is what she was watching.
Yeah,
and it was really cool.
And there was such a sweet moment, and it's so funny. We all know it was coming, but we just had this moment where you could just see she's just completely lost, and that whole. And I think we sometimes we lose
little actress. Oh my god,
and that's
I
the thing.
love her.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think we forget sometimes as adults, because obviously our brains and things develop, and then that also opens up to all sorts of adult problems. You don't lose yourself like you do as a child. You don't lose yourself, and so you just and that was portrayed. You're right, by that little actress so well, that just in perfect serenity, and then it happens.
Yeah,
and it made me jump. I was like, oh crap. It was coming.
I actually blinked and missed it. Like I literally blinked at the moment when it happened, and I was like, there was an explosion noise, but I guess that happened last shot because I blinked for too long. Like it was crazy. And obviously when we rewatched it this morning before we recorded, I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, the kids who play Pietro and Wanda are extremely cute. The girl who plays Wanda, especially when they're hiding under the table or the bed, she just looks like she was designed by Tim Burton as a person. Like Tim Burton drew her and she came to life.
Yeah.
She's just a wonderful little face on her, and I want her to be in everything now. Same with the other kids.
Whoever's casting the children,
actors, man.
Yeah, who's ever casting the children, well done.
Yeah. Really astonishing work. But yeah, so we see exactly as they described in Age of Ultron. They waited for 2 days to Tony Stark to kill them. Specifically, a bomb is right in front of them with the word Stark on the side, and we see, just like in the advert from episode 1, that sort of like the grey hue of, there is dust in the air, and that single red blinking light with the sound. Absolutely perfect, and you can absolutely see where that advert has come from. It's just that little part of her psyche. So very good, excellent work.
Yeah, I was like, you're so cool, dude. Yeah. I mean, obviously some of the other ones, like I think they had to be careful though, because like I was waiting to see like one of the whatever the yogurt was commercial, so I was waiting for them to like sit there and like the kid struggle. That would probably have been a bit too much, but it was just one of those. But the toaster and the blinking, I was like, okay. So yeah, but it was interesting, and I think that the Agatha kind of called this as well, but it looked like young Wanda was trying to do something to the bomb or whatever, and then of course she gets pulled back and we're into a different memory. But this is where it made me kind of go,
I got the impression that it definitely wasn't intentional. The way that she's sort of watching the TV that's still just about playing in the background, which astonishing electrical work there to be able to have a TV still working after exploding. Like that is bomb-proof televisions. That's what Sokovia has. But she's saying, at the end of the episode, you will wake up from and it will all have been a dream, basically. And she's telling herself that it doesn't feel like she's intentionally doing this to the bomb. And even when Agatha like calls her out on it and is just like, you stopped the bomb, she's like, no, it was defective. She never was doing it intentionally.
Yeah.
So that was just a fun little sort of glimpse into the horror of losing her parents.
Well, and I also think it's setting up the you've been doing stuff for a while and you didn't know kind of thing. Because again, I felt like this whole sequence of events, we're learning with Agatha. So, yes. And it's like Agatha's kind of echoing what we're thinking. And yeah. So then we basically get poor Wanda gets pulled out. So we're back to modern day Wanda. And then we have kind of, I think, a bit more of a breakdown about, I saw a young witch trying. What was, you probably have the quote. What was it?
I actually, for the first time, I don't have the quote, but what she said was something about, I see a baby witch just learning to use her powers with years of therapy ahead of her. Like, this isn't where this came from. Like, where did all your power come from? And obviously next we see her sort of experience with the scepter, which we obviously first saw in Avengers. Or Avengers Assemble, depending on which country your film was released in.
But was it Avengers Assembled here in the UK?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, extremely
just
weird.
Like Salazar's Revenge and Dead Men. Yeah, we won't go there.
But the room we see is the sort of experimentation from Hydra, which it isn't specifically called out, but they are described as like an anti-freedom terrorist organization. So yeah, it's Hydra, and we know that's where she was when this was all going down. But yeah, we see the scepter, and when she comes in, she looks so much younger, so much more gaunt, and I was just sitting there going, man, makeup and hair. They can do anything, can't they?
Yeah, maybe a little bit of digital, like, cosmetics.
I think, to be honest, you can do that pretty easily with some decent makeup. That's true. And especially with that low light and the yellow. That jaundices you straight up, so...
It's true. It's very true.
But yeah, so they specifically say not one subject has survived touching the sample. And they're just like... do it anyway, please.
Yeah, well, it was funny because it was like still on, like the mic going into the room kind of thing, and they're kind of like, what? Oops, hitting a button.
Yeah, and so she does. She doesn't even need to get near it. The gem almost comes to her, and yeah, we see it explode from that blue stone that was, I genuinely believe, designed to trick people. Mm-hmm. The fact that the scepter had a blue stone on it, I will always just assume is just them trying to like bait and switch with people with the Mind Stone.
Yeah.
And yeah, it kind of like reveals itself to her, and we see that sort of gorgeous silhouette vision of what looks like the future Scarlet Witch.
Yes.
With, as we saw in the Halloween episode, and as we've seen from the comics, that little headdress thing that she has. But this is what I was saying before about the crown, which kind of my husband was the one who sort of called this one out, but like perhaps that is how that can exist without being a silly outfit. Mm-hmm. Is it actually turns out that when she's like in full control of her chaos magic, she gets that like headdress of the Sokovian fortune teller, which would definitely be sort of a cool way of doing it.
Yeah.
Because I think
I got literally just goosebumps. I literally just got goosebumps because that's like my thought when we were talking about crowns earlier, and I was like, right, I think we're on the same sheet of music. I'm not going to say anything. And then when you said, I didn't even think about being the Sokovian fortune teller, but that could be like, you know how like in games and things are like, oh, you have the name of a power that you enable or whatever, and that would be what it'd be called, the Sokovian fortune teller, and it does the whoosh, that one. Oh. I'm excited for it. I really hope it does happen. And I'm excited for the sound design too, because I'm like, what's going to happen? Well, and also, they outright kind of show that stuff in the closing credits. I know they also show Vision's kind of old school silhouette as well, but they really, in the closing credits, do show that old school Scarlet Witch silhouette. So, yeah, I saw that too, where you saw that kind of silhouette in her eyes.
Yeah,
when that whole thing happened.
Beautiful silhouette, and pretty much all day on Twitter yesterday. WandaVision was trending. It's continued to trend even when the Pokemon Direct came out, and which usually just dominates Twitter. But no, it just carried on going, and everyone's just posting that picture of the yellow sort of image with the silhouette of Scarlet Witch on it, and you're just like, oh, okay, this is people are responding well to this.
Yeah.
Which is really nice to see. But yeah, what's also fun about this is it did look like the experimenters kind of reacted to the blast. But they then, whilst she has sort of returned to her cell, or whatever you want to call that, I'm going to call it a cell. The experimenters are sort of rewatching the video to see what happened, and it looks like she just stands there and then is on the floor. It's not like there is time missing from the recording, because it actually just ticks up second by second, and there is no sort of jump. It's not like something's been erased. So I'm wondering if maybe the sort of reaction to the explosion was maybe me just misreading the way that they sort of stood up to sort of at that time. So yeah, I thought maybe they had seen it, and then when we were going back and watching the video, it was like, oh no, like maybe they didn't see that happen. Very peculiar.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe it was one of those, like when the other subjects had died, like they literally got disintegrated, whereas she just gets pushed back kind of thing. But I saw that as okay, here we've been having things, quote, edited before, the WandaVision was even a thing. So this power is kind of like, oh, only I will, maybe it's one of those like, people can see it, because I also took it as they saw it, but electrical equipment, basically it can't document the power. So you could see it in person, kind of like, it's like anything kind of paranormal. You might be able to see something yourself, but then the electrical equipment doesn't pick it up.
That's actually a really, really good point. I like it.
Yay! One for me. So what happens after that?
Well, in her cell, I just thought it was really interesting. She's again watching some sitcoms, but the kid actually says something really interesting. Like the part of the show that they've used to sort of have her be watching, it's you'll hurt her feelings, and then the reply is she hasn't got any feelings, she's full of sawdust or rags or something. And I was just like, oh, that's an interesting one for you to have picked as the thing that she's watching.
Yeah, because even though of course it's the Brady Bunch, which that what we got kind of like episode 3 reference from. Yeah, I was thinking that too, because it wasn't just you get a few lines, like you were made to hear those lines, because obviously
and it's the focus that's what the camera's on.
Exactly. So that is very intentional to kind of choose that. And also, it was talking also, I think they were talking about something about bringing it to life or something in reference to the doll kind of thing. And I just was like, because obviously Vision is kind of a doll if you think about it in certain circumstances. But So she's in her cell and we're kind of watching TV. We're still getting that, okay, this is kind of her go-to escape.
Yes, this is her like comfort. This is what she does when she needs to feel sort of safe. And as the TV turns off, we obviously see that normal Wanda and Agnes are there. And Agnes is starting to sort of like trying to piece this together. She seems to think that maybe if Wanda had never encountered the Mind Stone, then maybe those powers would just never have been they would never have gone anywhere. Like she was able to do her baby hex as a kid, but it probably wouldn't have actually come to anything. But it looks like the Mind Stone kind of amplified her somewhat. And she says specifically,
I dare say.
Yes. she does specifically say, I have a theory. And I was like, so do we all, Agnes. Like, welcome to the fold.
Yeah, welcome to fandom podcasting 101. So yes.
And she says, I need more. So we see sort of the next sort of step, which I think is actually
the Avenger
one of the 2 times I teared up during this episode. And yes, we are at the Avengers compound directly after Age of Ultron. So this is fresh baby Vision, who has existed for probably 3 days now. And fresh baby Wanda, who has only just decided to not be part of Hydra, and not fight for the big evil bad guy. And more importantly, has just lost her brother. And yeah, so we see that she's watching Malcolm in the Middle.
Yes, and I want to say, because you've been helping me kind of rewatching stuff. I haven't rewatched it as much. That whole bit where he comes through the door, that's also, I think, in Age of Ultron or something. Because
he does it in Civil War, actually.
That's it.
And I think this is maybe the first time he does it. Whereas in Civil War, you get the impression that he always comes through the wall instead of through the door. And because in Civil War, he says, the door was open. I took that as an invitation that I could come in. And everyone's like, yes, but please use the door, not the wall. But it's exactly the same place where he came through during Civil War. So it looks like that I think their rooms are next to each other. And he's just like, well, this is easier. So he just comes back and forth like that, which is nice. But it looks like this is perhaps the first time he's done that. And yeah, they have like a really sort of touching heart to heart.
It's a really touching scene because it's also very interesting. And again, not to make this obviously too personal or serious, but I mean, I think we can all reflect in the kind of last 10 months have all had to deal with a grief of some sort. And kind of that talking about grief and love is kind of, the form of grief is a form of love kind of thing. And I'm not doing this scene justice, but it's one of those, it was very powerful and it gets you in the feels. I mean, it's getting me in the feels just kind of talking about it. But, it's kind of nice to have also a feel in shows like this. Some people complain, but you need these moments to breathe. Because if you've got a lot going on, I know we're even the MTV generation, and I know even the younger generation can consume things so quickly, but you need to be able to process. So this is kind of a moment where it's like, and you're also seeing now kind of that spark between these characters where there's a common ground and a genuine kind of curiosity about each other, and not, I wouldn't say attraction as in terms of like a sexual sense, but there's a connection forming kind of thing.
They are that's drawn to each other in some way. And whether that is partially to do with the Mind Stone, then so be it. But it is sort of interesting that, that's the thing that amplified her to begin with, and that's the thing that gives Vision like his I don't know, Frankenstein power source.
I don't
know. But it's nice because you've got the other thing that Vision kind of brings up is that whilst Wanda has, lost people in sort of this very traumatic, like enormous way, and it's not just like her parents and her brother, but also like she's lost her home. Like Sokovia was about to be used as a meteor to destroy the world, right? Everyone had to be evacuated from it. There was like so much death there that before that it was like a war zone. She's lost a community as well. And it's just kind of interesting to see that juxtaposition against Vision, who was previously Jarvis, who has, like he says, always been alone. So he doesn't feel lack. He doesn't experience loss because he's never had a loved one to lose. So he's he is learning what this means. And like I say, this is 3-day-old Vision. Like he is learning, like he is just constantly absorbing stuff right now about the things that he couldn't experience when he was just a computer AI. So yeah, it's just really, really, really interesting. And also, whilst they're having this discussion, they have Malcolm in the Middle playing on the television, and Vision asks, is it funny because that man was grievously injured? And she says, he's not really injured. It's not that kind of show. And again, you can kind of see that sort of, she's getting comfort from a world in which no one ever really gets hurt and no one ever really has bad things really happen to them. And like when she was little, it was at the end of the episode, it was all a dream. It was all made up. Everyone's fine.
Yeah.
And the other, sorry, I keep on talking.
No, please.
It's obviously nice to see them kind of like bonding over watching the sitcom. Like they've just had this very sort of heavy moment, and then Vision sees something on the television that makes him laugh, and they kind of like have that moment of just like, oh, maybe we can bond over something that isn't something terrible. I think.
Yeah, that isn't tragic, that, our connection isn't based in tragedy. Maybe our connection can be built by a common interest kind of thing.
A common positive thing.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like, coming from someone who really didn't care about the connection between these characters before this show, I now am invested, because I'm not always one of those, oh, you have to tell me everything or show me everything in a show. But this one was really nice to kind of, because it scares me, because I know that means something's going to happen, because it means now I am so emotionally invested in these two, and the emotional kind of emotions behind it. Yeah, thank you. The weight of the emotions behind it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have my heart things. Yeah.
I have great fears and great hopes, which is a terrible situation to be in with a TV show. Like, you're like, this could go so well, but this could also go so badly.
So what happens next?
So what's really interesting about this sequence is, as we sort of get to the end of it, we see Wanda and Agatha sort of standing just behind her, and Agatha, Wanda cannot see Agatha right now, but Agatha still almost, I would say sincerely, wipes a tear away. It's not performative. It's not it seems to be a genuine reaction, because if Wanda's not looking, why would she bother doing it?
True. And if it was to be performative, I guess she'd just kind of be like,
exactly. She would make sure that it was seen and heard, but it was very quiet, done, like, and also in a way to make sure that no one can see that that's what's happened. Also, I look like I've just had a little tear. But it looks like it's sort of that dab it away before anyone can see.
Yeah.
There's also something very interesting about Agatha's posture. So as at the beginning of this episode, she was very sort of straight back. She's got her rabbit in her arms, and she's sort of like, you will tell me this. I need this information from you, and you're going to do it. By this point, she's almost hunched over. She looks like she's trying to make herself shorter than Wanda. It's I wouldn't say it's submissive, but it's definitely less sort of overbearing.
On your level.
It's not even on her level. It's slightly below her level. Like, you can see there's a significant hunch to her back as she's standing in front of Wanda. And this time she says, tell me how you did it. Like, she isn't demanding this of her. She seems to be sort of going, okay, well, how did you get from this to this? And it's really interesting to see Agatha sort of over the course of this episode change in her attitude to Wanda from, you have a power I clearly want for a reason, to, hey, whoa, this seems like, I don't know if I want to go through that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wow, okay, maybe we don't want to have to deal with that, because that sucked.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by, like, this whole episode. It was like, because you're right, and I guess shame on me, but I didn't even notice the kind of posture change. But you're right, the power play changed, and I think that's why subliminally I was like, I can't tell if she's like trying to get it, because it's like you said it the best, because it's like, I have a problem, or it's one of those, or sorry, as one of those, you're a threat, or where it's more of a, oh, actually, I have a problem and you're a solution kind of thing. Yeah. And we've heard that before, that Wanda is the solution to our problem. So, yeah. Yes. But so now, if I believe correctly, we see, I think we're now door number 4, and we see her in S.H.I.E.L.D. Or not S.H.I.E.L.D., S.W.O.R.D., one of those armored fighting acronyms, sorry, into S.W.O.R.D.
Yeah. And this is a really interesting section, because with the others, we've seen expansions on things we'd already heard about. Like, we knew her parents were killed in Sokovia, there was a bomb. Great. And now we have a little bit more context to that. Then we know that, they were experimented on by Hydra. We've got a bit more information than that. Pietro was killed, and then Civil War happened. Like, that was the next time we saw Wanda, so we had no context for what happened in between. We have no context for how that relationship even started to develop. And then now we are seeing, this time it's we're getting a different message than perhaps we were anticipating. Because when I saw her walking in, I was like, oh, we're going to see her wreck the joint. I was delighted.
Yeah, and did we get the biggest misdirect? And I was still waiting for it a little bit later, and then we'll get there in a second. But yeah, so she comes in, and she obviously, I try to remember in the context of the character, much like Monica, has been blipped and has come back, kind of thing.
So and it's been like 3 or 4. Oh no, wait, for her it's been 3 weeks, right? Because that's how long it was for Monica as well. Like it's less than 3 weeks.
Yeah. Because I guess she got there before Monica did. So I bet she kind of showed up and was like, right, where? I mean, I would be like that. I'd be like, where is my loved one, kind of thing. But I knew something was up when she was like, he needs to be buried. He needs to be buried. And we think, I was like, okay, she's gonna be turned away, and that's when she's like, all right, I'm taking over. But no, she gets invited in. To
which tells us that Hayward's description of she stormed the compound, definitely different context for him saying that now. She goes through the doors. We see her using her magic to open the doors.
I love it.
Clearly, she's kind of tired of waiting and isn't going to be waited to buzz in, so she will just open them herself. But obviously that is one of the shots that they used from the CCTV to describe her storming the compound. Yeah, definitely interesting to see that she was invited in rather than storming the compound.
Yeah, the minute like she came in, and so as he talks about, I forget what Hayward says, but is kind of like, basically we see Vision being worked on.
It's kind of fun to see that the director's office is directly overlooking that lab. Like, he goes through one door and then they are there, and he can look down and see what's going on. But he explains to her, in his words, that they are attempting to dismantle the most sophisticated sentient weapon ever made.
Yes.
Again, in direct contradiction to something that he says later on in the episode, which tells me that a lot of what he has said so far needs to be re-examined.
Correct.
I want to go back and see everything he's stated as fact and go, is that true? What do we know that says that that's true? But he describes the Vision as being $3 billion worth of vibranium, which is, I think that was about what what Ultron paid to Ulysses Claw. I think that was about right. But yeah, so as I think I said a couple of episodes ago, that's Hayward's stuff.
Yeah.
That isn't anything to him except an object that he owns. But also very interesting that when Wanda wants to sort of see him, it is such a great kind of horror moment, because he's like, oh, you want to see Vision? Come through here. And she looks down and just sees this like pile of stuff, and she's like, I don't know why you're showing that to me. And he's like, I'm showing you what you asked for. And then you start seeing like the hand and the face, and it's such like an amazing horror moment. Like, I can imagine this exact sort of script happening, except it's like an abattoir or something like that, and it's like human bodies or something like that, and it's such a great horror delivery to the whole thing.
Well, I also saw it as kind of, he's finding a way to manipulate her. Like, he clearly could see when she was at the desk that, she wasn't going to go anywhere. He's the one that chimed in and was like, let her in. So I took that as he saw a woman that, because obviously to him, like you said, it's just machinery. To her, that's the person she loves in pieces. Like, it would be horrifying. But because there's that, obviously, again, that connection. So he's pushing that manipulation huge.
Yeah.
He's pushing on her emotions. So that's why he's like, well, I'm just showing you what you wanted, kind of thing. And he continues that because like she breaks the glass and everyone's kind of like, oh, and he's like, no, it's okay. And then she just comes down, looks at him, kind of just touches his face, everything, and then walks out. And I thought about this because this is where I was like, he's a liar. Because if you think about the CCTV footage we saw, we see her break the glass, it glitches. We see her come down, it glitches. We see her walk closer, and then it goes. Which, of course, we're thinking, yeah, of course she took it. I mean, we both were like, here it comes. And then now kind of seeing that he's doing this massive manipulation, you're like, of course, it was there the whole time that he messed with the tape. What else is he messing with? Is he the one messing with the broadcast? Or is there like a duality going on? I don't know. But, and she came out, I still was fooled by his own manipulation because she's going to the car, everything. And I was expecting, I sadly did, again, bring it back to Star Wars to, Mandalorian over there, thought it was going to be one of those, goes to the ship and goes, screw this, I'm going to take him. And then, no, we didn't get that.
Yeah, I think I actually remember when we were watching it going, oh, is she going to come back at night and steal him? But I think there's something kind of interesting in the conversations they have there, because he says to her, not everyone has the kind of power that could bring their soulmate back online. Forgive me. Back to life. So first of all, he is... so there's obviously a couple of ways of reading this, right? You can either have he is manipulating her, like he is pointedly saying back online to like be like, oh, he's just my stuff. And then being like, oh, sorry, forgive me, performatively back to life. Or it's been 5 years for him. He has been, according to later in the episode, attempting to take him apart and put him back together over and over again for what seems like the past 5 years. My husband was like, how did they get him out of Wakanda? I was like, because half the world was gone, their king was gone. No one's going to stop anyone from going into Wakanda and stealing Vision back. But yeah, so you can assume that for approximately 5 years, he's been putting this guy together and taking him apart again. It could quite simply be that sort of callousness of, no, that's my stuff. But the fact that he says that not everyone has the kind of power that could bring their soulmate back, how does he know what kind of power she has really? How does he think of her as someone who has the power to bring someone back? How can he know that? Where is he getting that from? I just find that very interesting.
Yeah, because I mean, I when I heard those lines, I guess I took it as a manipulation, hoping she would do something, which we later see did happen.
That's exactly
that would
what he was looking for, yeah.
Yeah, it was giving that little spark to kind of maybe thinking, hey, maybe in her grief, she'll bring him back, kind of thing. And hey, there's a room full of people and guards just outside, totally can, take over her.
Hey, there's an alternate universe where like that was even more of a horror setting, where she did ping him back to life and he's just this dismembered thing. Like, that's even worse to think about. Like, God, I'm glad we didn't get that.
Yeah, but
zombie Paul Bettany.
Oh my God. So, I mean, I guess it's one of those like, yeah. So I guess that's where I also was like, man, he is so manipulating her to, and so I guess I took it as he doesn't know quite what she can do, but maybe he's hoping by pushing that emotional button, she'll do something.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But I digress.
Yeah. I mean, like, I just thought of a really rubbish conspiracy theory, so I'll come back to that one later. I'm actually just going to write it just at the end of my notes so I can just go,
yeah, we'll do the speculation part. So while you're writing, so basically what happens is then she has a map. I don't know where she got this, but she sees a map.
It's not a map.
Sorry.
It's a deed.
That's it. Okay.
But just one other thing, sorry.
Yeah, no, go for it.
This is, again, quite a dense scene. she has been blipped, which means that she did not experience the past 5 years, which means that it has been about like we say, like maybe a couple of weeks since she like saw Vision die. But it also means that it's been a couple of weeks since the beginning of Endgame, which is where we get the sort of mirror of the phrase where she touches over his forehead and she says, "I can't feel you."
Oh my
In
God,
Endgame,
yes.
at the beginning of Endgame, Vision says to her like, I feel like I might get choked up. Vision says to her like, "Oh, touch this. Like, what do you feel?" And she touches it and says, "I just feel you."
Yeah.
So
I'd
that's, again,
forgotten.
it's a callback to something that, again, not the entire audience may have seen, but a lot of people have, and deeply upsetting.
Yeah, no, how can I forget that? Oh, yeah. Oh.
Yeah. But yeah,
And
so
performed so well. Because, I mean, this kind of stuff could be considered so campy if not done right,
I
you
know.
know? And it just, the performances, man. Oh, yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. You were talking about the deed.
Yeah, so the deed is on the passenger seat. Now, I
Yes.
thought that was somebody had slipped that through her while she was in the office, but maybe not. So I don't know where this deed or how this deed has appeared, kind of thing.
So the impression that I get is that she already had it, but perhaps she was going to try and get Vision because she thought maybe she could, whatever she found at this location that she was going to, that she's obviously never been to before, maybe she could put Vision there. Like if she got his body back, maybe she could put him there. And because it didn't feel like she'd never seen it before. She kind of
Yeah.
glanced over at it, and she didn't look surprised. She just kind of then put on her seatbelt and stuff like that. So I
Yeah,
think
that's true.
it
I
was
guess it
actually more of a
wasn't.
surprise for the audience, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so, because I guess it wasn't what's that? You are right. She just kind of buckled up, and then we see her drive to Westview, which I wasn't expecting at
No.
all. I was like, oh.
Oh, she's just going to drive straight there.
Yeah, and it was really cool because then we saw Herb. We saw
and Mrs. Hart.
Yes, I was so happy to see her again. And then I don't know if
Delivery
it's not
guy.
Norm. I think it's Norm. They do the piano lessons on things.
Yeah, not Norm. I can't remember that guy's name.
But yeah, Westview's looking a bit down,
Run
kind of
down,
thing. Like,
huh?
yeah, a little run down and things. And then we see her pull up to where the house is, which I think I love this, that it's literally just a foundation.
Yeah.
It's just a foundation.
It's just what we can make of this, whatever we want, basically.
Yeah, and that's when I believe that's when she opens up the deed and there's a little heart. What does it say? I couldn't make out what it
says. To grow old in V, and I like sobbed. But also, I really enjoyed that the property deed was in the name of Wanda Maximoff and The Vision. I was like, oh, Vision's full name is The Vision. I love that that's like his legal name.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a property deed for Lot B.
Yeah.
2800 Sherwood Drive, I think it is. Yeah, and it's just the foundations of a house.
And then, oh my God, then she just goes in, and then that's where we just see her. Basically, it's the epicenter of what later becomes the hex. So we see her building the house.
Yeah,
but then
from scratch, yeah.
From in scratch, but then also from that, then that grief expands. And that's where we see basically Westview gets transformed into this more pristine 1950s kind of setting. But what I also find fascinating in this whole situation is when Vision is being made, it's not the body. So Vision that we are seeing in the hex is just her pure creation, I guess, kind of thing.
And what's interesting about it is everything else that is made of her red wigglies, whereas Vision is all yellow magic. It is
Yeah.
all mind stone power. That's kind of what I'm getting out of it. And even
Yeah.
as things become sort of black and white, and you actually see like him sort of finish forming in the reflection of the TV, and it finishes with the spot on his head where the mind stone sits, which this is like the theory that we've been sort of arguing about in our household is, has she made a new mind stone, or is that just a gem that signifies the mind stone? Has she managed to create an infinity stone?
I don't
I don't
see
think
it.
so, but
No.
you never know with this universe. It is hard to completely discount things.
Yeah, I guess I take that as I want to see you how I remember you and
Oh,
how I love
for sure.
you.
But
And
it's just
so,
interesting that
yeah,
it's he's being recreated down to the mind stone, right? And if
yeah,
she's able to make physical things, she's able to make human children, whatever they are,
yeah,
hybrid human children, a house from nothing. She's able to transform a whole town, mind control a whole town, um, recreate the Vision from absolutely nothing except for what seems like the only her force of will.
yeah,
Um, it's not a huge leap to go, she's also created a mind stone from scratch.
mm,
Um, but yeah, and again, there's some things to discuss there. But I also wonder if, because Westview was kind of this, it wasn't a very modern looking town, right?
yeah.
It's I wouldn't call it like old timey, but you can see
Poor
it's kind
provincial
of
town.
it's stuck in a it's like it's obviously stuck in a time where they haven't had a lot of money put into it. That it's kind of all stayed the same for a long period of time, and perhaps
Yeah,
that sort of like that feeling of nostalgia that you get even when you are somewhere that you've never been before, but it still feels nostalgic, and that sort of subconscious things that make me feel comfortable are sitcoms, makes her go, then this whole town gets to be that too.
yeah,
I think if it had been a metropolitan city, it would have been less likely to happen,
yeah,
than if it's this like little sort of town in what feels like the middle of nowhere that's been
yeah,
kind of forgotten by progress of time,
yeah.
that sort of thing. So
Yeah, and we see them, basically she then now takes on, because at first he's kind of in the 1950s, but she's still modern day. And then this scene was like what we first saw, and except obviously they've changed the visual effect part of him, because obviously that would have been a major story point.
yeah.
But this is what we saw, where it's like he's in 1950s and she's modern day, and then we see her go into 1950s and they look at each other and then they sit on the couch and kiss, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I think that's where the episode ends, and then we go to credits.
Oh
No?
no, what we actually get to see, which is really fun, is the set. There's
Oh,
the
yes, of
set that everything
course.
was filmed on, which was, it was so great because like the next shot is those huge hot lights
Oh,
that
those lights are
everyone,
so
all
hot.
whole cast has been complaining about the whole time about just
Yeah,
how hot those lights have to be for the sort of 50s sets and the black and white cameras and for everything to show up properly. And Agatha sort of like claps. She has now finally clocked what has happened here. Now that she's actually seen what happened to make this, and disappears off, and Wanda is drawn again by the sounds of her children, who are appearing in this episode with little choke strings around them, and we see Agatha in the dress that I'd
oh,
been yelling for.
how amazing. I don't know how, I guess because again this is so dense. I don't know how I forgot this part, but she looks
She's
amazing. Like,
amazing.
oh, it's awesome. But
Aesthetic goals.
yes, yeah. I was like, this says Helen Halloween written all about it.
Yes.
Renewing vows, like that's gonna be your dress for when you renew your vows, kind of thing.
Oh,
um,
so
yeah, and
good.
so it's interesting because like. I'm having the biggest brain fart because I can just think about is her holding the kids, and she definitely goes into like parent mode or whatever,
Yes.
and then I think this is the big reveal
Yes. So, do you want me to go through the quotes?
Yes, please do. You're going to say it so much better than me.
It's okay. So, as Wanda gets outside, Agatha says, "You're supposed to be a myth, a being capable of spontaneous creation, and you're using it to make breakfast for dinner." So what she now understands how Wanda is capable of doing all these things that she wants from her, and she's kind of disappointed that she's this powerful being that is not using it as well properly as she thinks that she should. Yeah. And obviously Wanda is not interested in anything she has to say, sort of going for the kids. And Agatha says, "Your children, Vision, the whole life you've made. This is chaos magic, Wanda, and that makes you the Scarlet Witch." Cut to credits. And I'm yelling.
I mean, that's massive, like, because obviously, like, to hear it said on screen, because obviously, you know, like comic books and, you know, people have been saying chaos. I literally, because me and Cheryl both went, huh? And it was kind of one of those and I literally was like, is that the first time we've literally heard her called the Scarlet Witch on screen? And Cheryl was like, yes, I think it is. And then the term chaos magic too is a big deal. It's like the equivalent of like in Star Wars when, you know, basically he's calling him Palpatine, called him Darth Sidious. That's a massive deal. Like having that vocalized from a character. So even I appreciated that. I was like, I know I'm obviously not as in tune to Marvel as I am to Star Wars, but it's the same thing. It's just like,
absolutely.
Kind of
so exciting.
Yeah. And then I got to thinking, actually, this is where I thought about the crown thing, where I was like, oh, wait, maybe this is where we're going to see a showdown in our magic. And if that happens next episode, which we're still in debate if this is our series finale or not, but still, if that happens, I will literally just be like, wah!
Yeah. And if it is the season finale, I want it to be 4 hours long. And I just want it to be the most ever. And honestly, the moment this series is over, I'm going to be rewatching it all in one go. I'm just going to sit down on a weekend and just binge it maybe twice. And then I will do my Age of Ultron and then WandaVision duo.
And so then we, of course, since last episode, obviously I knew better and watched for the credits. And then there we have a post-credit scene. And did you notice, we're looking at the hex, but did you notice that the hex part is starting to cave down? Like it used to look just like this massive wall, but now it's starting, we're seeing like almost the top end of it coming down.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's just because they're much further away than they used to be, or because, you know, of what's going on inside, but I want to sort of take another look and make a call.
I took that as it's collapsing on itself, because of course the shift in power right now, because there's no quote broadcast happening or anything, there's a shift of power. So that's why I felt like, oh, the walls are closing in, or, you know, the ceiling's falling, the sky is falling, whatever parallel you want to use. So, but no, I mean, because they've shown that shot specifically, that framing, like last week as well, and that it was the same location, and that definitely you did not get that top kind of triangle part. And so I was like, oh, okay, is this collapsing? What's happening? But anyway,
it's just because inside with Agatha and Wanda, it looks like it's still sort of the 2000s world. It didn't look like it had gone back to normal. Like everything was still very kind of like lush and green and sitcom-y. It didn't look like it had all sort of gone back to the way that it used to be.
No, I would agree with that.
I don't think it's necessarily falling apart just yet, but I get the feeling it will probably next episode. If it doesn't fall apart, it's gonna, I've got many thoughts there. But yeah, that post-credit scene, once again, Hayward sucks.
I have a question about this, because people are going crazy about the white vision. So obviously this is something comic booky that I have no understanding about, but basically we see the drone. It still has Wanda's like magic on it, so there's that spark, so it's holding it like a battery charge. And then we have the slow camera reveal to now we're seeing a white vision with again stone, but there is no stone kind of thing going on, but pure white. It almost gave me Silver Surfer vibes, if I'm honest. Again, now this is me. I'm going to embarrass myself. Comic book people are going to be like, like, what? But just kind of, so
Yeah.
please fills me in. Fills me in? Fill me in. That's someone who's obviously not as in tune with this side of the comic books. This obviously is a big deal because people are losing their minds.
Yes. So, two things about this. The first thing is Hayward said to Wanda, "We are disassembling the most advanced sentient weapon ever made." Blah blah blah. And in the post-credit scene, he says, "We took this thing apart and put it back together 1,000,000 times." So, no, Hayward, you weren't disassembling anything. You were point blank lying to her. You suck. We know because we saw the shot afterwards. But yeah, so White Vision, or Blank Vision, as I've seen him called a couple of times, he is a sort of well-known from the comics. There's some excellent panels of the Scarlet Witch reacting to seeing White Vision from the comics, which if you want, I can send you and we can pop it on screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so White Vision is quite simply Vision, but with no memories, emotions, personality, anything. He is just
the
a
vessel.
blank vision. He has he has no memories. He has no connections to anybody. And it's interesting because I remember when we first saw Endgame in the cinemas, and we saw him sort of dead in that, and he'd gone kind of grey. There was a lot of people going, "Oh, maybe we'll get White Vision, maybe this is where he comes from," because he looks kind of white in that picture. And I guess they were right. There was just a couple more steps first.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. But yeah, so he's just again, he's just Vision, but without any of Vision in it. He's just the blank vibranium metal man that Ultron was making.
By hearing you say this, I've just gotten a deep fear of a direction where this is going, and you're going,
Tell me all
right.
about it.
Okay, so here we go. We still have Vision in his full form, but he's now split into two. We have basically his soul with Wanda, even though he doesn't quite remember, but people are filling him in. Yep. So that emotion, that heart, that compassion, that personality is with Wanda. The body, the vessel, is with Hayward.
Yep.
Something's going to happen. I don't know when. I don't know where. Maybe it's going to be in the multiverse of madness. Those two will converge, and Vision will never be dead. And we will kind of. I know some people want him to come back, just like people want Ben Solo to come back. But then you kind of lose all that emotion, and that all just kind of gets. There's no consequence, I guess. It's like, oh, well, you know what? People can come back to life. Oh, we already had it where people come back from a blip. It's just like, sometimes when it's like too safe that nobody dies, there's no emotional weight. Just like people going, oh, Black Widow's going to come back. So that moment, like, that I always am sobbing at, where he's like, she's like, you gotta let me go.
Yeah.
That's gonna get cheapened if she comes back, just like it's gonna get cheapened if Tony Stark comes back. So I'm scared. They've just set it up to where we got a whole Vision, but he's just split into two. It's almost kind of like how they did it, not in Terminator Genesis, but the other one that came out after Genesis, where you had the skeleton, you had the exoskeleton, and yes, thank you, on the actual liquidy bit, but then they eventually could merge together and become one.
Which is the raddest part of that movie.
Honestly, I actually really dug that, but anyway.
Such a cool thing to do. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I would actually quite like to see Wanda have a happy ending for once. I would like my ideal ending to this series is everybody has a happy ending, which would be Wanda fully embraces Scarlet Witch persona. We see that outfit. We see the crazy comic book headpiece,
crown.
Agatha somehow is happy to become her mentor and teach her how to use magic instead of just like sort of whatever wigglies she has right now, like to actually like formalize that tuition. I want to see Wanda use that sort of incredible power that she has gained right now to take the Vision that she has created and just pour it into the body that they've brought back to life. I want to see her kids grown up so that we can have them in Young Avengers.
Yeah, Wiccan and Speed.
And then my last question is, who is the guest star going to be?
Well, people are saying is it Bentley or Bentley?
Paul Bettany.
Bettany. See, I couldn't even say his surname. People are saying that he's being a little trickster. That the greatest cameo that because he was saying he was really looking forward to, and it's someone he wanted to work with his whole life is himself.
That would be amazing.
So people are literally going, "Hang on, he's totally trolling us," kind of thing. And who knows?
Love that. I would love that so much.
Because who knows? Because
that's obviously something that's like, there's been things going on a lot with people. Just for context, there was a interview with Paul Bettany and Esquire, I think last week or the week before, where he specifically said that the person coming for the cameo isn't Evan Peters. He specifically sort of called that one out as not being that, but he said it's someone that he has always wanted to work with. And obviously that made a lot of people go, is it Ian McKellen? Because they've never worked together, and Paul Bettany is a Brit, and who wouldn't want to work with Ian McKellen as a British theatre person?
I want to.
We were saying, like, it can't be any of the stars from Avengers or like Endgame or Infinity War, because he will have worked, even if they weren't on screen at the same time, they probably would have worked together. So like, people were saying, oh, is it Benedict Cumberbatch? They've already worked together in a film, and also they would have been on set together, so there's some level of working together.
Yeah.
But honestly, if it is him trolling and it is just himself, I will start, if there isn't one already, I will start just a Paul Bettany fan club, and I will just run through the streets screaming about how much I love him, because that is top class. And God, now I just want that to be the case.
So that's what a lot of people are like going, oh, you cheeky bugger, kind of thing. Like,
oh my God.
And that would be so great, because that would be the biggest.
It would be true as well.
Yeah. It would be the biggest kind of to us and people who speculate, but in a fun way, not a mean way, but but it'd be like, I got you. Yeah.
So my last thing I wanted to say was my I have an insane conspiracy theory.
Yes, tell me.
Here's my insane conspiracy theory. Hayward is Mephisto.
I could see
That's how
I could see it.
That's how he knows what Wanda is capable of. That's why he's so against her. That's why he wants to keep track. I don't know. I would have thought about this 20 minutes ago. So I haven't fully formed it yet. But what a conspiracy theory, right?
I guess my only thing is, and I'm not shooting it down, is why is he tracking now Vision in the Hex if he has Vision already?
How about this? He's tracking a thing that Wanda made. He actually really wants the kids, because he wants the things that the chaos magic can make. And perhaps he doesn't realize that Vision is made of Mind Stone energy. What he actually wants is the kids, because this is the thing from the comic. Mephisto is one of the fragments of his soul are the two kids that Wanda created. So I don't know. Like I say, I came up with it 20 minutes ago. I haven't. Oh,
that's completely fair.
But I like it. I think it might have a leg.
It might, because then it kind of, because then it doesn't. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. I'm going to have to sit on this one. Yeah.
And then maybe that's who Agnes is working with outside the... Maybe they're a duo? I don't know. I have no idea. Not a clue.
Yeah. I don't know. Because obviously, the only stuff we've now not seen that's been in the promo materials is Wanda kind of going into the air. And because I thought the way she was dressed, I thought that was going to be like the 80s episode. Seeing Vision and going, this is our home, then we'll protect it or whatever, and them kind of we'll fight for it, thank you, and them kind of looking out the window and holding hands, and they're obviously looking at something. So it's the only ones left, and it's kind of like
so no idea. Very excited to see the next episode.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed the twists and turns in this one.
Yeah, and just, yeah, as you can see, I'm still like gobsmacked. I don't even know like what to say. But on that note, I will say, Helen, where can they find us?
You can find me at KetziAita_N on Twitter and our podcast at wherestreams_CT on Twitter as well.
And you can find me on Twitter at Shenanigen with an EN. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you are listening to the audio version, please share it with all your mates and things. We greatly appreciate it. And yeah, so now do we have one episode left? Do we have two? I think going by what Twitter is saying, I think
one and a secret episode. That's what
okay.
That's the Twitter speculation that I've seen recently that a lot of people are focusing on.
I wish it was just tomorrow, like next week, because I have so much going on in real life. I'm like, oh my God, am I really going to struggle to actually do a final episode of this podcast for this show? We'll see. We'll figure something out. We might have to be like on stereo or something. Like, we got to talk about it now. But, yeah.
If you have any speculations, especially about my Hayward Mephisto conspiracy theory, please put discuss and speculate wildly in the comments below.
Yes, in the comments below. But thank you for checking out this episode, and we will see you guys next time.
Bye.